Let's do it up.
It's April 21st.
April 21st.
And it's time to decode what they mean in the Daily Stoic.
Let's do it.
April 21st. Don't let your attention slide. Pardon me. Don't let your attention slide.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out what they mean. Epictetus has a quote for us today. When you let your attention slide for a bit, don't think you will get back a grip on it whenever you wish. Instead, bear in mind that because of today's mistake, everything that follows will be necessarily worse. Is it possible to be free from air? Not by any means. But it is possible to be a person always stretching to avoid air. For we must be content to at least escape a few mistakes by never letting our attention slide.
That's interesting.
You want to go bit by bit?
Well, yeah, let's do that. That sounds good.
Okay. So he says, when you let your attention slide for a bit, don't think you will get back a grip on it whenever you wish.
Okay.
I like that. It's like, thank you for calling that out. That when I let it slide, it becomes harder to bring it back. Instead, bear in mind that because of today's mistake, everything that follows will be necessarily worse. Maybe like my attention slides, so I do something, and the thing that I do now has downstream consequences. It puts some sort of negative outcome in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just a matter of, oh, I lost my attention on this thing. It's that when I lost attention on this thing, I behaved in a way that is going to make my life worse. Then he goes on and he says, is it possible to be free from air? Not by any means. Mm-hmm. No. But it is possible to be a person always stretching to avoid air. For we must be content to at least escape a few mistakes by never letting our attention slide.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay. I don't know if I've heard the Stoics talk about attention yet. And so the thing that's vague to me here about this quote is the part about it that's letting your attention slide. When he says, when you let your attention slide, that's the part of it that has the most question marks for me in my mind in terms of what does it look like when your attention slides? How do I know that my attention has slid someplace?
Well, I based on results, right? You're not having optimal results, perhaps, or you catch yourself, and then when you catch yourself, you realize that you did slide or slid, But that's what he's saying. He's saying like you can't be perfect, but try to not to let your attention slip from living through the virtues of Stoicism,
Yeah, maybe that's my question, is like slide away from what?
From those in the way I'm looking at it is like from paying attention to the things that we have control over, or for sliding from these living our lives not according to those four virtues from the other day. So
okay. So attention should be concentrated first on that which is within my control, and not on that which is outside of my control. That will put me in the best position to live my life if my attention is firmly onto the things that are within my control. And then once my attention is there, it sort of needs to be corralled a little bit like a sheep herding dog. And so those sheep, maybe there's 4 sheep herding dogs, and those are the 4 virtues of wisdom, self-control, justice, and courage. So that as I'm thinking about or paying attention to the things that are within my control, I'm paying attention to it with sort of being buttressed by the 4 virtues. Okay. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
About if I think about that, that's the big question mark that his quote opens for me is like, okay, well, slide, point taken, but I kind of need to know where is it sliding away from? Like, where's the
baseline? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. But the baseline is
the other aspects of the Stoic philosophy, which is pay attention to what's in your control and live by these 4 virtues.
Judge the world based on those virtues, or look at world through the filters of those virtues. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that. You ready for Ryan? Ryan Holiday says, Winifred Gallagher, in her book Wrapped, quotes David Meyer, a cognitive scientist at the University of Michigan. Einstein didn't invent the theory of relativity while he was multitasking at the Swiss Patent Office. It came after, when he really had time to focus and study. Attention matters. And in an era in which our attention is being fought for by every new app, website, article, book, tweet, and post, its value has only gone up. Part of what Epictetus is saying here is that attention is a habit, and that letting your attention slip and wander builds bad habits and enables mistakes. You'll never complete all your tasks if you allow yourself to be distracted with every tiny interruption. Your attention is one of your most critical resources. Don't squander it. Okay, well, this has a different flavor to it because I'm reading like a much stronger flavor of the distractedness versus like, it's like he's using attention as a synonym for focus.
Right. And
so then there's the question of focus and distraction, which is also a very valuable lesson.
Right. But I'm looking at it like it is the same thing because it's a focus to live based on those virtues. Yeah,
I'm also seeing though that it's like there's even that's sort of like the macro, like high level, like live like this. And I'm also hearing him talk about like these more logistical kind of micro moments in the day when it's like everything's competing for your attention. And so if you let yourself be the person who, goes to write an email, but then gets pulled away by an IM and then pulled away again by a notification on your phone or something like that, you're building up bad habits that are going to prevent you from this sort of macro thing. And so
you have to have a system, some sort of system.
And this is why, like, I really appreciate our silent sitting in the mornings because I notice how undisciplined my focus is because my focus is constantly flittering away to this storyline or that storyline. And it does seem to be trending in the right direction. But it hasn't hit like a compounding growth curve yet. So it's like they're almost like imperceptible differences. But I do feel like my focus is starting to, like sometimes I will notice when I get distracted on something in a way that like 3 months ago or 6 months ago, I probably wouldn't have even noticed that I got distracted by something. So there's more of that happening where I'm noticing it, like, whoa, how did I end up on this website when I was like just trying to resolve this comment? And then there's longer periods where I am able to focus without a distraction coming in. Like, not so much during silent sitting because there's not really anything for my mind to do except for wander off. But when I have like a concrete task that I need to work on, it's easier for me to get into flow state with that task where I'm just focusing on it and there's not a whole lot of the distractions happening.
Yeah, I mean, distractions are, they say like, there's some research done about distractions and they're saying it like, for every distraction, it takes like some up to like 15 minutes to get back to it after that distraction, back to what you were doing. So not only you got pulled away, but that thing that you were doing now going forward is now less efficient because you pull yourself out. So there are these two variables in it. Not only it's getting you out of that focus, but it's shifting like the world that you were in when you were in that world, right? And now coming back to that world after that distraction takes really a long time to be back in that deep, like thinking about that one thing that you were focusing on. For sure, yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, there's like context switching is very expensive. Yeah. And that's good for me to think about on a brain level because it's like obvious when I'm working with a team and I'm looking at like, okay, well, like this Slack channel is just blowing up left, right, top, and down while all of the people in the channel are trying to move forward on individual tasks but are constantly being pinged out over here and then pinged into their email. And it's like you can tell already that we would be getting deeper, better, more quality work done if we were allowing our attention and our focus to really grip onto one thing and one thing only. It's like the difference between thinking an inch deep and a mile wide on everything versus an inch wide and a mile deep into something. And so it's interesting to now take that and then apply it to how my own brain functions from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed at night. Because there's so many of these little inefficiencies, distractions, context switching inefficiencies in how the whole day happens, even outside of the workday. And so I appreciate today's entry that's just forcing me to sit with this idea a little bit. And it's reinforcing that our morning meditations are so critical for this reason. And that's why I'm not like upset when I get done with half an hour and I've been thinking the whole time. Like I'm not upset by the fact that my mind was going all over the place because I see it as part of this process of slowly training my attention over time.
What the guy August Bradley was talking about is how, like, keeping a list of distractions, like how do we know what distracts us? So like kind of going through your day for a few days,
the audit,
kind of auditing of what distracts us, but then also, so that's one part of that. Or like one helpful tool to notice like what are actually distractions, right? Like what does that actually mean, right? Like you go, hey, I'm gonna go get up and get a snack, right? In the middle of your session or something, so like you start kind of noticing where
right.
that
Well,
is.
and he started
And
that
the second-
video.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can I insert the first? There's a step before that, even in the video that he had, which was like
hold that
okay,
thought.
okay.
So the second part was really about having
Sorry.
having your calendar scheduled in the way that you seem like, let's say checking your email is a distraction from something, right? Or Slack is a distraction from something. It dings, it pops, it does something, right? So he's saying, well, maybe don't check it every time it dings. So turn off your notification and put it on the calendar every hour. On the hour, check your Slack channel.
Yeah.
And then for that rest of that hour, don't check it. Or check your email not every hour, but maybe 3 times a day, or
Yeah,
let's
he
say
talks
4
about
times a day.
scheduling
So
it.
having it scheduled, and then what's in between are these blocks of time of where you could potentially get yourself into like, I am focusing, I'm going to have a non-distractive time, or less distracted, because things will still happen, but now instead of 6 interruptions I have 1 or 2 or something, you know. So
Right.
that was my whole
And I
thing.
have my workday already structured like this. It's more so like
I'm not
like the
saying-
time around it.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that you should do something with this. I'm just saying that like that just sparked what you were talking about
Yeah.
like how you could actually like what are tools to actually kind of get myself into paying attention to that and minimizing those distractions throughout the day is actually tracking it and scheduling it. Like those
Yeah.
would be the tools for it.
Yeah, because the first thing he said in the video before doing a distraction audit, he was like, well,
This
you
is your
can't.
thought.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
you
yeah.
were reading. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because he was like, you can't do a distraction audit if you don't know what you're being distracted from.
Right.
So you need to have a plan for your time to begin with. Once there's a plan for the time, now it's easy to tell, oh crap, I just went to CNN. Under normal circumstances, if I don't have a plan for my time and I go to CNN, all of a sudden that doesn't seem like a distraction.
Or Fox News.
Either one. But it that doesn't seem like a distraction.
Or Facebook, whichever.
Whatever.
it is, yeah.
It doesn't seem like a distraction because you didn't plan to do anything else during that time.
Yeah, no.
And so he's like a big proponent for really the whole day to have a plan for our time. And I don't think it needs to be like this waterfall approach where it's 6 a.m. you know exactly what's going to be happening at 9 p.m. at night. It could probably be a little bit more agile, like you're planning things throughout the day. Like even earlier today, we were like, well, let's go for a hike this afternoon. But we didn't have that idea until, lunchtime. But the idea being that as I progress this next moment in my life, that I want to already have a plan for that moment so that now I'm living a lot more intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I can actually figure out where my attention and focus is supposed to be, what's relevant, and what doesn't fucking matter right now. And this like reading this and listening to August too, like just puts it into perspective how much I don't have a handle on that. And through the whole 24-hour day.
Not many of us do. Yeah, like I don't have that figured out perfectly. Or I would say you have it figured out probably more than I do, because how you're scheduling your stuff and all these tools that you're using and stuff. But like no, but I'm just talking about it in a way like that's what I want to be doing, right? Like I know those tools. If I remind myself of those tools, then I cannot say, well, I don't know how to do it. Okay, no, I know how to do it. He talked about it. You just start tracking that. First, make that list of what distracts you. What did it distract you from, right? What pissed you off that you got distracted, right? You're like, it distracted me from this important thing. So now you know what's important. Now you know what distracted you, and you keep this up. And now all of a sudden you see this list of distractions and list of things that are important. You're like, oh my God, do we think about this? Like very rarely, right? It's like you don't see it in these columns. You're just like, well, yeah, there are some things important, and there are a bunch of distractions in my life. But what are they? Well, I don't know, right? Until you actually you're paying attention to that, and then you see it.
Yeah. And the important things he's saying, like, that's what you schedule. Like, that's what it's like. It's in the calendar. It's in the schedule. It can be fluid and dynamic and changing.
Start and an end time.
Start and end. Yeah. It can change.
It can change. You have to. The underline of this whole thing is open to change anything. Because this is not. Because it's in the schedule, it doesn't mean that it's not going to change.
And it could be nap for this period of time.
Yeah.
Sit and stare out the window and do nothing.
It should not be just like your day full of chores. No, it should be chores and then quality time with family, quality time with yourself, exercise, eat food, more work, other things, right? And so, there are pleasures and work and all of it. But if it's scheduled, because we could get distracted from the fun stuff too. Yeah. And then a lot of times that seems like, well, it's okay. It's okay that I had to get on an emergency call with work when I was actually planning on going for a hike. And now I'm not going for a hike. Right? And now I'm dismissing it as like, it's okay. But
and maybe that maybe that is okay for that circumstance, but maybe there's a different thing where like you never leave the house because you just get swallowed in a social media wormhole or something, and you're like, well, what the fuck? Like I had planned to do this other thing. Yeah, it's like if I'm gonna do something, I need to be able to commit to changing it on the calendar. And I'm not talking necessarily like the G-Cal, like I'm just talking about a calendar I have in my head that is like, this time is designated for this thing, and anything outside of this thing needs to be, it can be evaluated during this time in case I need to switch what I'm doing. But it can no longer just flow through like an open door policy. No.
Yeah. Or there could be some open door policy where you say, hey, from 5 to 7 p.m., it's open door policy. You know what I mean? Like, it's unscheduled time. The unscheduled time is scheduled. You know what I mean?
Yes, the unscheduled time is scheduled.
Let's just see what kind of happens. It's not rigorous, full of, oh my God, every slot has to be full. No. But should there be some slots that are filled? Yes, 100%. My point too.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about my calendar these days, I've really broken it off psychologically from the idea of my work calendar. Like when I think about my calendar, it's like this amalgamation of work, hobby, side hustle, us, seeing friends.
The entire hierarchy.
All of the things all kind of in there. Naps even, morning routines, evening routines, like all of that gets bundled underneath this concept of calendar in my mind. And that's been a really helpful shift, because even a year ago, when I conceptualized calendar, it was very much 9 to 5, work. Monday to Friday.
And then it's like the schedule is from 9 to 5, and then there's this open time.
And somehow that open time always just disappears. And I don't feel refreshed.
It's filled with something, and we're like, well, why was it filled with this? Right.
Like it's not productive. It doesn't. I don't have. It's
it was
weird.
Filled. The answer is it was filled with it because it wasn't scheduled.
It wasn't. Yeah, and I was distracted the whole time. Yeah. And what's interesting is I don't actually really have memories. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't have memories of how I spent that time, because it was like I wasn't an active agent in it. It was just sort of like time was happening to me. And I was just here for whatever Netflix was going to, automatically play next. So it's cool to think about how that shifted over time.
Yeah, that was a good one. Okay. Good. Everything else? Anything else?
Daily Stoic Power. See you soon.